Well, hello everyone. I hope you're having a blessed and beautiful day today. So today I'm going to be your little news anchor. I'm going to share quite a few, I don't want to say quite a few, I think there's 3 articles that I want to share with you. The end article is what's going to take the longest, and you'll see why. But, and excuse me, I'm having really bad allergies today. I keep sneezing and my nose is like going crazy. But anyways, so this one is from Breaking Israel News, and it's talking about the second Passover and the lamb sacrifice that the Jews wanted to do on the Temple Mount. And it says, the second Passover reenactment canceled, protest held against possible secret deal banishing Jews from the Temple Mount. While Muslims have free and exclusive access to the Temple Mount, a second attempt to hold a reenactment of the holiest temple service of the year was canceled, as high ministry restrictions kept many from relating to their biblical roots. Police hampered a small gathering protesting a possible secret deal made by the Israeli government that will exclude Jews from the holy site. For the last 10 years, the Sanhedrin has overseen reenactments of the Korban Pesach, the most important sacrifice that was brought in the temple. This year, despite receiving all the permits required, the ceremony was not allowed to take place due to health ministry regulations restricting public gatherings. Even though they're allowing Muslims to still go up onto the Temple Mount and pray, they are coming against the Jews, and they have all the permits that they needed. They did everything right. They had all the permits that were required and needed in order to perform this sacrifice, but the Sanhedrin wouldn't allow them. The Sanhedrin requested that a small ceremony of 10 Jewish men of priestly descent be permitted to take place at the biblically appointed time on the Temple Mount, but this request was also denied. But the Sanhedrin did not despair, and the Torah makes provisions for just such a difficulty with the institution of Pesach Sheni, the day on which Jews who were unable to bring the Passover offering on the 14th of Nisan would bring their Passover lamb 1 month later. All of the necessary all of the necessary government permits were received and practical arrangements made to hold the Korban Pesach Sheni reenactment place on the Mount of Olives on the eve of the 13th, May 7th. But the last minute, the police, citing health ministry restrictions, refused to allow the event to take place on the Mount of Olives and prevented the organization from entering the old city of Jerusalem. Rather than ignore the significance of the day, a small protest was held. I went too far, hang on. Okay, a small protest was held in Gan Habonim, a grassy area outside of the Jaffa Gate. The gathering was to protest that no Jews are permitted to enter the Temple Mount, even though the Waqf Muslim Authority is holding public prayers and convention of health ministry is holding public prayer and conversation from the health ministry regulations. Earlier this week, Israeli Supreme Court Justice Daphna Barak ordered the legislative branch of the government to respond to a petition filed by Temple Mount activists. According to the appellants Aaron Segal and Yehuda Etzion, a closed-door agreement was made between Israel and Jordan to close the Temple Mount to Jewish pilgrims. Segal and Etzion claimed that the Prime Minister Netanyahu engaged in a secret negotiation with Amman and agreed to close the holy site to both Jews and Arabs during the coronavirus. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, a spokesman for the Sanhedrin, told Breaking News that they had been given less than 24 hours' notice by the police to relocate the event, making it difficult to comply. The new permit allowed for only 20 people to attend. Here's where it gets really interesting. It is even more important now to hold these events. the actual temple service and not just reenactments, Rabbi Weiss said. In the days of the Bible, nations were not just random political entities. They represented elements in the war of good against evil. We are quickly returning to that condition with the conflict being expressed on every front. Moral, economic, social, and it seems that this will come to be expressed in military conflict. The Sanhedrin called on Trump and Netanyahu to take a stand on the Passover service for this reason. The temple service was an important part of the stories of international conflict described in the Bible, and these conflicts reappear. They will be again, he said. It is for this reason that the Sanhedrin is calling for an organization of the 70 nations to resolve these conflicts, something the United Nations is only making worse by attaching itself to anti-God agents. It is for this reason that the Sanhedrin is pushing for a reestablishment of the biblically mandated temple service. It is for this reason that the Sanhedrin is calling on world leaders to represent their nations in the return to Zion. Okay. That's interesting. Calling 70 nations, that little clip right there, that was quite a lot in there. Okay, so then the next one that I found was Washington State has another bug to worry about after the murder hornets. They're called gypsy moths. Now, I got this from CNN, and like I've always said, you have to consider the source. CNN is not always the truth, not telling the truth, but I thought it was kind of interesting, so I thought I would read it anyways. And it says, add another bug to the list of Washington State that Washington State is handling right now. Earlier this week, scientists said that they had spotted Asian giant hornets in the state, and it's still unknown how they even got there. Now there's another threat, a non-native gypsy moth. Such a threat, in fact, that Governor Jay Inslee issued an emergency proclamation because of the creatures, saying there was an imminent danger of an infestation of the plant pests in part of, it's up towards Seattle. This imminent danger of infestation suddenly endangers the agricultural and horticulture industries of the state of Washington and seriously threatens the economic well-being and quality of life of the state residents, he proclaimed. Sorry, again, I went too far. Okay. The threat is posed by both Asian gypsy moths and Asian European hybrid gypsy moths, according to the proclamation. According to one government agency, the pest can cause major damage. Large Asian gypsy moths infestation can completely eradicate the trees, according to the U.S. Government of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services. This defoliation can severely weaken trees and shrubs, making them more susceptible to disease. Repeated defoliation can lead to the death of large sections of the forest, orchards, and landscape. Females can lay hundreds of eggs, according to the agency, which become caterpillars and munch through more than 500 different trees and shrubs. And because the moths can fly long distance, they likely can quickly spread throughout the country, the agent said. So, God's hand is definitely moving over here in Washington. Okay, so now this part is what's going to take the longest. There's something new that I've seen in the last week or so that I didn't know before, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but God gives me great discernment, and I know that I now know that they have been conditioning for this for years. This is something that will become reality and part of the beast system. And in fact, the Antichrist will use this in tracking devices. It is called voice-to-skull technology. And I just recently heard about this week. I didn't even know anything about it, but I'm going to show you how this is all going to play into the beast system after I read this. So it says, Okay. It's from targetedindividualsagenda.com. I'll put the link down below. Voice to skull is the transmission of voice or any other audible or subliminal sound directly into the hearing sense of the mind to control the victim. It is sometimes done around the clock and can be one of the severest forms of torture. Voice to skull technology is sometimes referred to as synthetic telepathy. Current-day voice to skull cannot be stopped by any known electromagnetic shielding, a fact that demonstrates how advanced classified mind control technologies has become. In addition to simply driving a target crazy, voice to skull can cause far more severe damage to a targeted person if instead of audible voice, one of several types of subliminal voices is transmitted instead. When the subliminal voice is that of a hypnotist and is aimed at a targeted person's bed, voice to skull can be used over time to undetectably program the person. Because the power level required is fairly modest, being something like an output of a common heat lamp, the person being programmed could have no idea this was even happening. A person who is highly susceptible to hypnosis, which is nothing more than mind control of demons, and about 1 in 5 could be put through living hell simply by way of subliminal voice to skull. It also can be referred to as synthetic telepathy or artificial telepathy. It's a brain implant that can transfer thoughts from one person to another. And it says, synthetic telepathy, artificial telepathy, is a part of electronically transferring thought directly to and from a brain. The primary objectives of nanobrainimplant.com are to expose technology that can provide point-to-point communication from one brain to another, to localize unwanted sources of telepathic communication, and to provide evidence that technology-implemented telepathy is possible. Welcome to Nanobrain Implant. The experience of synthetic telepathy or artificial telepathy is really not that extraordinary. It's as simple as receiving a cell phone call in one's head. Indeed, most of the technology involved is exactly identical to that of cell phone technology. Satellites link the sender and the receiver. A computer multiplexer routes the voice signal from the sender through microwave towers to a very specifically defined location or cell. The receiver is located and tracked with pinpoint accuracy to within a few feet of actual location, but the receiver is not a cell phone, it's a human brain. Out of nowhere, a voice suddenly blooms in the mind of the target. The human skull has no firewall and therefore cannot shut the voice out. The receiver can hear the sender's verbal thoughts. The sender, in turn, can hear all of the target's thoughts exactly as the target's verbal thoughts had been spoken or broadcast. For this reason, the experience could be called hearing voices, but is more properly described as artificial telepathy. Now, if artificial telepathy were entirely voluntary, like a conversation between friends sitting across the room from one another, it might be kind of cool. One could talk back and forth with one's friend, exchanging verbal thoughts exactly as if speaking on the phone, but without ever using one's voice or mouth. It's a completely silent, subvocal form of speech. The problem is that artificial telepathy provides the perfect weapon for mental torture and information theft. It provides an extremely powerful means for exploiting, harassing, controlling the mind of the person on Earth. It opens the window to a quasi-demonic possession of another person's soul. When used as a non-lethal weapon system, it becomes an ideal means for neutralizing or discrediting a political opponent. Peace protesters, inconvenient journalists, and the leader of vocal opposition groups can be stunned into silence with this weapon. Artificial telepathy also offers an ideal means for complete invasion of privacy. If all thoughts can be read, then passwords, PIN numbers, and personal secrets simply cannot be protected. One cannot be alone in the bathroom or the shower. Embarrassing private moments cannot be hidden. They are subject to all manner of hurtful comments and remarks. Evidence can be collected for blackmail with tremendous ease. All the wrongs of moral lapses of one's past are up for review. The attacker cannot be seen or identified. The attack cannot be stopped. And the psychological damage is enormous. But there is no physical damage. Not one single mark is left on the body, and there is absolutely no proof of any crime or any violation that ever took place. Everything that happens to the victim happens inside the victim's head. What physical evidence is there to give the police? Without physical evidence, how can one photograph the crime scene or fingerprint the stalker? There are no footprints leading to or from the scene. Indeed, there is no physical evidence. I lost my place. There is no physical scene at all and no evidence that an attacker ever took place. To understand how this works, it is best to start with the target, then trace backwards to identify each of the required subsystems. If we look at the last diagram to the left, and I'll put it up, we can see that the key to this system is the ability to both listen and respond with electrical activity of the brain implant from satellite. Okay, so I want to briefly talk about this and how Satan will use this to his advantage. We know in Revelation it talks about how people will have a microchip either in their hand or their forehead. Let's think for a moment about this. Once a person takes the mark, they are doomed to hell forever, and we know that. When they take this microchip in the brain, how will Satan be able to track these people from so far away? How will anyone be tracked unless through satellite? You won't be able to remove this device once it's there, and you will be fully tracked and traced wherever you go. The voice-to-ear technology will be the very thing Satan uses to send his demons to you and torture you day and night. This is how he will speak to you and get you to come against the people who are becoming Christians during the tribulation. This is how he will get you to do his bidding. People will line up for this because they make it sound so irresistible. You don't need a wallet, you don't need keys, you don't need a phone number. All you have to do is just think it and it's done. No words ever spoken, and there you have it. With this comes a loss of privacy, and those who do not take it will be found out. When you can't think telepathically from one person to another, this is how they will know that you don't have the mark. This is like crazy. Is it making sense now with all of this? Oh my gosh. Then we had Emmanuel Macron putting up himself as the world leader. He didn't have one single person oppose the idea of him becoming the leader of the world. And in fact, he had different nations backing up the idea. And I could do an entire video on this man and all of the weird stuff that I found out about him. And I might do that maybe tomorrow, but this is crazy. There's a rumor, and remember, a rumor is what it is, but usually there's a little bit of truth to a rumor, and the rumor is that he is a homosexual and that he had an affair with his bodyguard. And I am still doing some investigating and looking that up to find out if there's any proof to it, but I did see some pictures of him with men, and it's pretty questionable, to say the least. So stick around for that. I'm going to see if I can gather up all of the information about this guy and, just kind of give you guys some education about him and, keep your eyes open and aware. And, this voice to skull technology, this is something that has been going on for years. And I think I tried to go back as far as I could, and I think it was 1996 they were talking about it, and then all the way up until 2019 they were talking about it. So, that article that I read was really super long, but if you listen to the words on the things that they're talking about and how it can transmit by satellite, you'll be able to see that that's exactly how the Antichrist is going to be able to track you and trace you, and he's going to be able to speak to you through that. And that's why these people are going to be demon possessed, because when someone is a born again Christian, light has no interaction with darkness. Darkness cannot enter you, and they won't have anything, to do with you. And that's why the Christians in the tribulation, they're going to know better, and they're not going to take this mark, and they're going to be able to track you and find out that you don't even have this mark because you can't think to each other. Thought that was kind of interesting. So anyways, I'm going to leave that with you, and if you have any questions, please write them below. If you need prayer or need to email me, I will put my email down below as well. So anyways, I love you guys, and I hope you have a blessed and beautiful day.